know, let's just kind of slow down a little bit. We still got like a month before school starts, so let's stay in summer mode for just a little bit longer. I know usually we hit this training, and it's school's just right around the corner. It's not this year, so we're getting this done early. I'd scheduled some presenters, and I had to give them the dates back in September, so that's why we ended up keeping the same dates that we've kept in the past. But we'll have this knocked out. Y'all won't have anything to do for about 3 more weeks. So again, we'll enjoy summer for just a little bit longer. Also, let me say one more time real quick, if you do want any snack foods, there's drinks around the corner, bathrooms, just kind of get up and go when you need to. I haven't built in a whole lot of breaks so that we can kind of get through everything as quickly as we can. Hopefully we can finish up around 4 o'clock today or a little bit after 4. That will be the plan. Even though that does say 4:30, we're going to do our best to try to get out a little bit before that, if at all possible. ID badges. Anybody that was a new employee that hasn't ever had a picture taken needs to have one done this morning. I think we've got all of that taken care of. If I do have anybody else that has lost their badge, wants a new one, you should already have a picture on file. Just see these guys back around here. You can walk out there. I think Kayla's back out there. Just let them know that you need a new badge so they can probably pull your old picture and just get you a new one. So if you do need those, just kind of let one of us know, let one of them know. But I'm really excited about today. We've really got some good presentations here. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Ballinger, let her get us started, and then we'll just kind of keep rolling right along. But again, if you do need to get up, go to the bathroom or something, please do so. Grab you something to drink.
All right, good morning, I'm almost going to say welcome back to school, but since we have about 3 weeks, I won't stress everybody out by saying that. But thank you all for coming in on your summer day, kicking off with this training. Happy to see everyone. I wanted to say I had to go to Chicago last week for a superintendent training, and I was there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And while I was there, I lost my wallet and I lost my phone. It actually was stolen when I was there. So I was never so happy to get back to Kentucky in all my life. So that was an experience. But I also had the opportunity while I was there to be in a room with superintendents from all over the country. So at my table that I sat at, I had superintendents from California, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Florida, and so every table had a variety of superintendents from different states sitting there. But every time we would have some downtime and the trainings weren't going on and everybody was talking just like you all do when you're sitting around a table, everybody that was sitting at my table kept complaining, and they kept complaining over and over and over. They were complaining about their bus drivers. Well, I never said a word about anything, and one gentleman that was sitting across from me said, "Well, what about you? Why are you not chiming in on this discussion?" And I said, "Because I got the best bus drivers anywhere. Why, I don't have anything negative to say at all." I was like, "We really honestly work together as a team." I said, "I've got a wonderful transportation director, got great bus drivers." Said, "I don't have anything to complain about." And they're like, what are you doing that we're not doing? Because, our bus drivers don't show up. They go on strike. They're always complaining. They're mean to the kids. And I'm like, well, I don't know. You need to come to Rockcastle, and you all need to come spend the day with us because we have the best drivers, the best monitor, the best transportation director. And I'm just incredibly thankful for the work that you all do. And that really opened my eyes. Sometimes when we're all living inside of a bubble, we don't realize how much we have to be thankful for, and thankful for the people we work with, and thankful for the job that we do, and thankful for our kids and our families and the environment that we're in. So I wanted to share that with you all, but I just wanted more than anything to say thank you. And what am I thanking you for? Thanking you for being a rocket, thanking you for showing up every day for our families and for our kids and for our schools and our teachers and our principals, and for Mr. Hopkins, thank you for always helping each other. I listen to the bus radio every morning, every afternoon, so I hear the traffic, and I hear you say, you call Mr. Coffee there at Mount Vernon and say, I've gone past this house, the family's not there, can you make a call and have this parent meet me at such and such church? But you're not on there grumbling and fussing about it. You're just trying to get the kid home safe and make sure that you're finding an adult that you can get that student home to. And I'm just so incredibly appreciative of that. And I appreciate you all, and I appreciate the work you do. And you know, you hear me say every single year, you all are the first people that our kids see in the morning, and you're the last people they see in the afternoon. And the impact that you have on those students does not go unnoticed. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate you. I know Mr. Hawkins appreciates you. If there's ever anything that you all need, you have my cell phone number. You know how to find me. Please reach out. And I want to leave you really quickly with this. This was a quote. I'm reading this book by John Gordon, if any of you all are interested. And the title of this book is The Carpenter. Has a lot of Christian parallels, but this quote, and this made me think of our team. Many think that fear is strong and love is weak, but people don't run into burning buildings to save a life because of fear. They do it because of love. Love is much more powerful than fear. A team that loves each other will be stronger and stay together much longer. So I thank you all for being part of our team. You mean everything to me. You mean everything to Mr. Hopkins. And without you, we would not be successful in educating our students. So thank you all very much for what you do. Hope you have a great training. And I will be back this afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Around
4 o'clock. We're a little early or something, I'll holler at you.
Okay. And I will see you all again this afternoon. Thank you all. And thank you for coming to share with us today. And you wear that shirt proudly. Thank you all.
We're gonna move right along. I'm not gonna introduce him a whole big bunch, because I'm pretty sure he's gonna kind of introduce himself, and he can probably describe himself a whole lot better than what I can. But this is Brian Collier. He works in Madison County as a special needs teacher. He's also a school bus driver. He's also been a transportation director. I heard his presentation back in the summer at a conference, and I reached out to him, and little did I know that I only got like a little part of his presentation. And the best part, I think, is the guy here, Roger, that he's brought with him to help him do this presentation. So I really think that this will hopefully bless everybody and really kind of give us a good perspective and a reminder of what we do, the reasons we do everything. But this is going to be special education related, so it does tie into our 8-hour update. But I'm going to turn it over to Brian and
got this, and I may have Roger, because he's my cue man.
Okay.
I may give this to him and let him try it. And then there's a couple of slides where we may have to use the mouse over here to click to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Roger, take that, and then let's practice real quick. See, right goes next, and then left goes back. Okay. All right. So how about I just tell you next? Okay.
Does anybody else need sign-in sheet? Here.
Good morning, Rockcastle County. Mr. Hopkins briefly said, my name's Brian Collier. This is Roger Brown. And for Madison County's update and at KAPT, I was asked to speak on special needs transportation. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. I have 2 pictures here showing that. One from the driver's seat, and then 2, the second one, leaving a bus and on a community-based instruction trip with 4 of my 11 ducklings. I dropped off the other bunch, and we'd gone to a different site, and I was taking my 4 with me into Walmart to shop. And I've been blessed with the principal and the director that allow me to do that with my kids weekly, and it's a good opportunity for them to practice life skills. As Mr. Hopkins said, he got the short and skinny of it, because when I presented at KAPT, we only had a 50-minute window, and there's a lot to do. It's kind of like the movie Smoking the Bandit, you know. They had a long way to go and a short time to get there. Well, I had a lot of content, and I really just got through the tip of the iceberg, as they say. But there's so much about special education, students with special needs, and transportation that I could probably take the whole 8-hour update, but I won't do that. All right, next slide, Roger. All right, so before I introduce myself, I've got to introduce the legend, Roger Brown. And I say that because he's a celebrity. All right, can you tell him about this picture, Roger?
Sure.
What program was that? What'd you get to do that day?
But he tasted I American Summer Fun and
Where was this? Frankfurt?
yeah.
Yeah, Frankfurt. I had received an email from our director of special education about something called the Sunny Page program. And they have a page program, and a couple years ago they started something they called the Sunny Page program. And the Page program and Sunny Page program is an opportunity for Kentucky students to go and clerk in the Kentucky Senate and House for the day. The Sunny Page program is the inclusive version of that, in where kids with disabilities, any type of intellectual disability, can be nominated and selected. And Senator Jared Carpenter, as I found out, was all about this. He sent the email out about it. I nominated Roger and another one of my students, and he got accepted. So this is Roger participating, filling in as president of the Senate that day as a clerk. And then you want to tell them about this one, Roger?
Yes.
What were you doing there other than trying to kick me in the head? Turn around and face them.
I'm saying this, I make this because my friends made me more proud.
Uh-huh.
Cause I did that, I hit Brian in the head because I went, oh, okay, get hurt.
Was this a tribe rally?
Yes.
Yeah. At Madison Central, our pep rallies are called tribe rallies because we're the Madison Central Indians. And this was it the first or second one, Roger?
Probably the second.
Second one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so we get out there, and this one was supposed to be a synchronized dance, and it was swag something or another. And so I was supposed to stand out there, act like I'm surfing, and Roger and Greg, because they're my two athletic ones, were doing flips. Well, I stepped out a little too far, and Roger's coming across and nearly co-cocked me across the face. Of course, the whole crowd went crazy. That wasn't why they were supposed to go crazy, but they loved it. And so Roger was made infamous with that tribe rally. And then up here, and I don't know if you saw the news story or not, but we're going to watch it for a little bit, but he's a celebrity. On our last tribe rally, what was the game they played, Roger?
What do you call it? Chairs?
Chairs, musical chairs.
Yeah.
And so Roger was the musical chairs champion that day. He won, beat everybody in the school, and that picture was taken at a news story that WLEX came and did on us. And this is where I'm going to slide over here and click the button over here. All right, so you stay put, Roger. Hey, it works, buddy. I'll say that. Just jinxed myself. Got it paid for, so there's the advertisement.
Anybody on either side without a lawyer. As soon as an accident happens, the insurance company is more interested in assessing fault in a way that means they don't have to pay than taking care of you. The insurance piece is too complicated for anybody to handle on their own, especially when they are injured as well.
At Golden Law Office.
Can everybody hear that?
Inside of the insurance business.
I'll try to
Let us
maximize it
help
once
you.
it goes.
The spotlight turned to a sophomore during a pep rally featuring more than 2,000 students. Drew Ammon has a positively LAX 18 story from Richmond.
Wednesday, students packed the Madison Central High School gym for a culture building activity, musical chairs. And this Instagram video shows Roger Brown, a 10th grader with Down syndrome, competing in the finals.
It's fine because maybe all my friends back help me out because I would be good student. So I would be a good day.
Zach Perkins described the support for Roger.
In the video, you heard saying, "Let's go, Roger," and that went on for so long. My voice is still tired from yelling at the top of my lungs.
Perkins reached out to LEX 18 News describing how Roger's friends agreed to get him to this point. Keaton Clevenger reflected on the scene when he carried Roger off the court on his shoulders.
Just look back on it. I mean, 30 years down the line, that's all you ever do, really. Just think about your friends, family, all the memories you made at your school.
Roger's mom, Tabitha, watched the video on Instagram.
He won a prize for winning the game. And so he showed everybody that I work with, and he said, "I won, I won, I won."
Madison Central wins as a group, living by its motto.
We talk about igniting greatness a lot, and that's what they did. Roger's going to remember that the rest of his life. They're going to remember that the rest of their life.
It makes me want to cry. I'm still thinking about it. I teared up, but I try not to lose it in front of the entire student population of Madison Central. Moments like these are what make this job worth doing.
An unforgettable moment for everyone in this room and beyond at Madison Central. Drew Ammon, LEX 18 News.
Love that. Roger's teacher, Brian Collier, was so impressed by the example set by the sophomores. He says he can't wait to see what the future holds for that class at Madison Central.
Very.
So we finished the year on that high, and we get to come back, and we've already started discussions on starting a peer tutoring class, and then there's a club with Special Olympics called Unified Champion Schools, and we're going to apply for that to see if we can get that club going. And so just more or less wanting to showcase and brag on Roger with that, but with this whole presentation, there's so many aspects of special needs transportation and special education that I could hit on, and this is just going to be one piece of all of that special education, special needs transportation content that you got going through the driver training and curriculum. But I wanted to show more or less with one student what can happen, not to assume that what you see on the outside is all that package is. There's so much more going on inside, and so much more that they can, that I wanted to use him and do this with him as a way to showcase, yeah, they can, and for people to shift that focus from, because a lot of times stereotypically as society we kind of dismiss this population. We don't give them the credit that they deserve. So if anything, this will be a way to showcase what a student with Down syndrome can do, but then also give you a little bit different opportunity to see the content from the driver training manual. All right, next one, Roger. So now we're going to do a Q&A with Roger. Roger, what do you like about riding the bus?
Awesome.
What's awesome about it?
It's awesome to me is fun, be safe.
Fun, be safe.
And follow rules.
Follow the rules? Yeah. What do we do if something bad happens on the bus, like a wreck?
That question, a leg is being bad, you get hurt.
Could get hurt.
And be safe, people. I want you guys to be safe, because don't be like these, keep playing white, because I want us to get words, get crash, or get hurt.
Yeah.
You can't do that stuff. You
Can't.
hurt yourself.
So what's the most important thing to keep us safe if a wreck does happen or an accident happens?
Probably get out.
Okay.
Bus.
Need to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you listen to the adult on the bus? Who's the adults on our buses? And let me pause you there real quick. Give you context to this. I drive a route in and out of Madison Central. I have Madison Central, Madison Middle School students. No, we're not supposed to play favorites, but it's probably the best route in the district. And then they allow me to use my bus for my community-based instruction trips. So the same bus I run my route with is the same bus that Roger and his classmates get to go on the community-based instruction trips with. And it's not a special needs bus. And that's one thing that, in talking with Mr. Hopkins, not all students with special needs are on a special needs route. And that's huge and that's amazing and that's awesome, because just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they automatically have to be on a special needs bus. So kudos to you all in Rockcastle County for doing that, because that doesn't happen in districts that I've, going to KAPT and conferences like that, you see and hear what different districts do across the state. And that's just one easy way to include your kids with special needs. Now, not every student is going to be able to do that. You may have behavior situations, or you may have medical situations or adaptive needs that may not be best for them to be on a regular bus or a general bus, and they need to be on a special needs bus or a resource bus. So with that said, in that context, I asked him this question, and he didn't get to it, but we'll get there. I do the same type of emergency evacuation drill with my students on my CBI bus as I do when I'm doing the route. We have to do those 4 mandatory evacuations. We practice those 4 mandatory evacuations. Now, the bus I drive for my route is a rear engine pusher, so we don't have the back door option, but we do practice the front door, and I have practiced the side door drill. And if something happens to me, what are you supposed to do, Roger?
I'll run away.
Run away. No. Who's on the bus with us to help? Me. And if I'm hurt, who do you listen to?
Yolanda and Mary.
Mary and Yolanda are the pairs that go with me on my trips. He threw me under the bus. Right away. So you listen to that and listen to them. And then what about the emergency exits and equipment? How do you operate that stuff? Can you tell them about them?
Of course.
Yes. So what other ways than the front door do we have to get off a bus?
Front door and back door. Front door and back door.
You got the back window or back door. Roof hatches.
What else?
What do we lift up and down or have to push out?
I don't know.
You don't know? What about windows? I'll give you that. It's been the summer. Okay. Now, if we open any of those, are they toys?
No.
No. They're tools for us to use, right?
Yep.
So what happens if we open any of those handles? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember.
What does it sound like?
Beep.
It beeps. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. That means it's
Hurt
working.
my ears.
It hurts your ears though? Yeah. It hurts my ears sometimes too. What is something that the drivers and monitors need to know about kids with Down syndrome?
Oh, that's me though.
Yeah, that's you. Okay. What do they need to know about kids with Down syndrome? What would help them as a driver or monitor?
I think.
Be sure to face that way. Face Steve.
Oh.
We're just having a conversation. You're acting like you're talking to me, but we're talking to them.
We're all friends here, Roger. We're all friends.
Oh, it's okay. I know it's hard to talk. This is a new group, isn't it?
I shy.
You're not shy. Just give them 5 minutes and you won't be shy. Anyway, if there's anything I can ask or answer about that, give them a chance. You may have to slow down and, take 2 or 3 times to hear them, but not just hear them, but try to understand. A lot of times kids with Down syndrome they will do anything and everything they can to please whoever the adult is that's in charge of them. We're not, again, I've already said this once, but we're not supposed to play favorites, but one of my favorite disability groups is kids with Downs because they're such rays of sunshine. They're such blessings. And I've been at this 18 years and I've not met one kid with Down syndrome that didn't have me smiling or laughing by the time I was done interacting with them, whether it was on a bus route or whether it's in a classroom or just a school activity or Special Olympics. They just radiate energy. And that's something that if you haven't had the chance or know an individual with Downs, you know, it's something to look forward to. Anything else to add, Roger?
Nope.
Okay, let's go back to the emergency if we have a rep. What do you remember when if something happens to me, okay? What do we go up and need to shift the transmission to? Reverse,
First.
neutral, or drive? What do we need to put it in so it doesn't go anywhere? This is a quiz, and we've had almost a month and a half of summer. Do you remember?
At first,
Yeah, to make the bus stop.
the stop mean is stop because all cars want to go because you'll wait.
Yeah, you gotta wait. You're thinking about crossing. You gotta stop until the cars go so you can cross. Okay, that's good. But what if if something happens to me, I fall over the steering wheel? You know, we don't want to think about that, but sometimes that might happen. You run up, what yellow knob? You remember the yellow knob on Mr. Collier's bus?
Yes.
What do you do with that? That's the brake, right?
Yeah, like
Do you push it or pull it to make it stop the bus?
what is it?
Pull it. Good job. And then what gear do we want to shift the bus to if we have to make the bus stop? Reverse to make it back, neutral, or drive?
I first.
Not reverse. That would tear something up bad. We want to go to neutral, okay?
That's all.
All right. Even though you might not think that's something to talk about with your kids, that's something that I work in and talk through with them. On my route bus, I have 2 or 3 of my route helpers practice pushing the bus into neutral and setting the brake, just so they have that feel. And Bowie, who's on my regular route, knows that if something happens to Collier, he goes up and tries to push the transmission button into neutral and then pull the brake. And, you know, I have shown them what that quick, now we weren't on school grounds and it was safe to do so. I don't want you to think I was just going crazy with them. But I think I guess it's the trainer in me. It was important enough that instead of just having 2 or 3 kids appointed to help or as route helpers like Bowie, I also showed them, hey, if the crap hits the fan, you know, you need to know how to pull the brake, what it feels like to pull the brake, and then what gear we're shifting, you know, to. So, and I even talked through that with Roger and his classmates. Next slide. Good job. Who's the best bus driver, Mr. Collier or Mr. Yosick? I set you up on our last 8-hour update. Mr. Yosick was in the crowd, and he said I was. So who's the best one, Mr. Collier or Mr. Yosick?
I think you.
You think me still? Okay, I'll take that. 3 out of 3, so I'm batting 1,000. Why is riding the bus important, Roger?
That question. You're right, because that word is what that orders is what.
Right here. Why is riding the bus important?
Important is speed.
Why do we ride the bus? You're okay. You all are witnessing something that I've never seen, him being bashful or not being able to talk. So. Too funny. But you're good, bud. It's important to ride the bus because we got to get to school, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What's one thing people need to know about you and helping you on the bus? What's one thing they need to know about Roger Brown? What makes Roger Brown Roger Brown?
That question, I need help me because I'm not talking about stop and put it that way.
Uh-huh.
And the cars get quiet, go to work, get jobs.
Crossing, going to jobs. Yeah.
And this one is be safe, don't follow rules.
Follow the rules.
The rule is don't eat
Don't eat. Okay.
and no pops.
No pops.
Except water.
And no pops except water. Okay. Can you tell that I've kind of had these repeated conversations and just going through the rules now? Next slide, Roger. All right, so who's this big bald-headed guy in front of us? Again, as Mr. Hopkins shared, my name's Brian Collier. I just completed my 18th year in education. I'm one of 3 MSD teachers at Madison Central, and I joke that when I came from Callaway County in far western Kentucky to Madison County, it was like the country mouse went to the big city, because I was, previously the director there, but then before that I had taught MSD, and we had one MSD room at Callaway County High School, and I had 6 MSD students when I started, and after 5 years in the classroom before I took the director role, we had 9. So then we go to Madison Central. I'm one of 3 MSD teachers, and we have 33 MSD students in our building. I mean, the numbers were just crazy. And we go into our first tribe rally, opening day, and we go into this huge gym that looks like something that came out of a small college, or could be, used as a small college gymnasium. And there's the whole school in there, 9th through 12th grade, all the staff, the administration, and there was something like 2,312 people in the gym. And I take a panoramic shot of it and send it back to my friends in Callaway County and said, I'm now teaching in a school that has a gym to hold all the people like K through 12 at Callaway County schools. And it was crazy how just big everything was. So 17 years driver's experience. I guess that's now, no, it was 17 years, 18 years in the classroom. 17 years driver experience. There's a year off of that because I started my CDL my first year, the process to train my first year teaching. But can't think of Olson. Mr. Olson at Murray Independent had some health issues, and then his wife passed away. So my training got stretched over close to a year, year and a half. So I don't want you to think it's like, good Lord, what's this guy doing up here training us? And it took him almost 18 months to finish his CDL. I was kind of strung out hopping along through the process. Long story short, I left Murray after that first year and accepted an MSD position at North Marshall Middle. And John Ward was the director at Marshall County, and he got a hold of me, got me certified, and then I kept telling him, it's like, John, I just want to drive trips because I want to do the community-based instruction trips. Well, he said, well, we'll keep that in mind, but we'll try to think you'd like route driving. Well, it was maybe the 3rd day of school. John calls and says that Ann Coursey got bit by a brown recluse. She's going to be out 3 to 5 days. Can you cover her route? Real easy. She lives right there across the school, and she actually did. I mean, she parked her bus right on the side road from the school. North Marshall said, you can just go to school, park the bus at school for that matter. He's trying to do everything he can to recruit me and hook me into driving. Well, those 3 days turned into 3 weeks, and then I joke that 3 weeks turned into 18 years. It's, some might say that sounds like a prison term, but it's not when you're having fun and loving what you're doing. So I've got 17 years of driver's experience, 15 years experience in the classroom. Of those 18 years, 3 of them was experience as a director, 2 at Callaway, 1 at Trigg County. Been certified 10 years as a driver trainer, and then 1 year certified as a bus inspector. Next one. Because when I was at Callaway, I was literally a one-man show and had to do a lot as a director. So again, this is my wife and I, England Falls, walking. We love to hike and camp. So that's Melissa. She is teaching middle school language arts at Berea Middle this year, and we live in Berea. Next one, Roger. That's my daughters, Anna and Addie. And you get pictures like that when you leave your phone down and they pick it up. We're on a trip to Roanoke. My grandma had passed away and we're up there for her funeral. And between the visitation and the funeral, we did some sightseeing. And that was one of the places we went was the Star up on Roanoke's mountain there. And I was looking back through it after the family pictures and the cute pictures that we all took, and then I get to that one and I start laughing. And I said, "What's this?" I said, "Well, that's what you get for leaving your phone down." And I said, "No, this is what happens when," I said, I'll get you back." And I said, "So this is what happens when your daughters mess with you. They don't think they're going to take that picture and use it against them." What they didn't know was the first 8-hour update I did with Madison County, Donnie Hunley and Jeremy Phillips have their CDL and drive from Madison County when they're needed, but they're also the principals that Anna and Addie have. So I made sure that Mr. Hunley and Mr. Phillips have access to this picture so they can mess with Anna and Addie when they get back this fall. Next slide, Roger. And I'm Harley's person. That's my 6-year-old doodle. She's more like a cat. I don't know if you can tell from that picture or not. All right, next slide. And then I have, when it comes down to work, I have two loves, kids with special needs and the smell of diesel. And it's funny when I wrote this because my wife was, she was driving and I was working on the presentation back around school let out. We were going on a weekend trip. And she looked over and saw this and she said, "Well, I'm glad you finally put that in writing." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "There, you wrote it down that your first two loves are kids with special needs and diesel." And I said, "Now wait, hold on. That says when it comes to work, not you." So I almost got myself in trouble saying that, Roger. Next slide, please. Good job. Special needs transportation. We'll jump into the content now. And from the manual wants us to emphasize and train on the importance of communication, physical characteristics and behavior tendencies of special needs students, loading and unloading procedures, student management techniques, and identify ways to communicate with special needs students. All right, next slide. So let's see what you know. Don't worry, it's not going to be graded and have to redo it. This is a group pass-fail test, okay? So the pre-test. All right, next one. As you can see, that's the Chapter 9 test from our driver training manual. Let's just see how well you remember your content, all right? Next slide. Number 1, the driver of a special needs bus must be firm, fair, and consistent when dealing with pupil behavior management. True or false? True. That's true. You want to be fair, firm, and consistent. Firm, fair, and consistent is how it's worded there. And if I can kind of teach while we go through these questions, one of the ladies I train with at Madison County is Elaine Bennett Vanderford. There's 2 lanes, and I got one Elaine. There's a lane that drives a regular route and a lane that drives a special needs route. And the lady that drives a special needs route, Elaine, drives a special needs route but has 2 grandsons that are on the autistic spectrum. And she told the story during our 8-hour update about how opposite they are. Like one's non-verbal, the other's verbal. One's not active and just kind of a recluse. The other one is about as active and go get it as they can get. And she said the one thing that meets in the middle with both of them is being fair, firm, and consistent, and she doesn't, and as a grandparent, as a driver, she shared that she didn't want the other drivers in Madison County treating her kids any different, but, that wasn't just on that side of it, but when it comes to behavior expectations, don't assume that they can't. Assume that they can, and you may have to teach it or explain it a little bit differently, but they can get it, as you can tell with Roger being able to recite and rehash stuff as we went through that. Number 2, 2 things that parents and children expect from the driver when transporting students is care and protection. True or false? True. That's right. need to give them the same care and TLC, tender love and care to them that you would, general ed or regular education students on regular routes. All right, number 3, seat belts on a special needs bus is recommended, but it is not a law. True or false? It is true. It is not, that threw a lot of people for a curveball. It is not a law that students with special needs be restrained. A lot of districts have, you can be more restrictive, you can't be less restrictive when it comes to regulations. So a lot of districts have policies in place to where preschool and special needs buses have belts. You can purchase them with belts on them. The one thing that supersedes this, though, is that if a bus comes equipped with a seat belt, then it has to be used because it's part of that original equipment. And most of the special needs buses, I think they pretty much come standard now with the harnesses built into the seat on the newer orders. All right, Roger, number 4. There is no need to keep a copy of a student's health care plan on a special needs bus. True or false?
False.
False. That can be some pretty important information to have, especially depending on the student's needs and abilities. All right, number 5. A child who has recurring seizures should be isolated so they are left alone. True or false? False. If anything, you may want to strategically place them, so you can keep a better eye on them. If you're on a special needs bus, you may want to seat them as close as you can around the wheelchair spots, depending on how they're set. You may want to have that child closest to the front of the bus so you can keep a better eye on them in the mirror. And the same goes for a regular bus. You may want to keep them up front. Or the thought that was shared with me, and I have done when it's applied, when I've had students on my bus with a seizure condition, is seat them, if you're on a regular bus, seat them towards the middle where you have access to the side door area. Why would that be important for a kid with a seizure?
Because they need to be ambulanced out.
Ambulanced out, but then you also have the space there, and it would be, you can get them down in the floor easier and have more space unobstructed if you're on a regular bus, to where that individual could be safely laid out and not have a chance of hitting their head on the wall or the seat frames that attach to the floor. All right, number 6, Roger. Bus rules should be given to special needs students in terms of what they should do, not what they should not do. True or false?
False. I think they should be given both.
Think they should be given both? That's a good idea and notion, but by the test, it's actually true. You want to give them, because sometimes what we do when we're getting into the should not, you keep talking. You add more words. And if you're just telling them what they should do, you usually just say, I need you to sit down. Instead of, no, you don't need to stand up. Because when you get into that should not phrasing or that approach, then you start trying to explain and justify what you're asking rather than just saying simply what they should do. So depending on the kid and the situation, you could go both ways with that. But with kids with special needs, most of the time, and especially if they have any sort of attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity, they've checked out and aren't listening to you after maybe the first 5 words that you said. So that would be the importance of getting the information out as soon as you can and just being short, sweet, and to the point. There's an acronym that one of my fellow teachers used early on, and he liked to KISS, and he joked that, you got to kiss. You don't know what to do, just kiss. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. So that might be a little rough, but it stuck. All right, Roger, number 7. A signature release form should be signed whenever medication is received or handed off by a driver. True or false? True. Don't know what Rockcastle County's policies are, or even if you all, or if you even have to deal with this. For the most part, a lot of districts require that exchange be adult to adult. And then a lot of times nurses at the school level, to avoid having to transport this because you don't know, is the heat of the bus going to affect it anyway? A lot of times medical staff and parents will just arrange for pickup and drop off at the school. But by regulation, it is allowed for medication, and sometimes it has to stay with the student. But sometimes regulation allows it to be exchanged adult to adult. All right, next slide, Roger. When loading and unloading students, other students on the bus should not be left unattended. True or false? True. Don't know monitor situation. Sometimes special needs routes have a monitor. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes a regular route has a student with special needs, but no monitor. So, but regardless, when loading and unloading students, other students on the bus should not be left unattended. That really kind of throws a wrench in things when you have a wheelchair lift and a student using a wheelchair, because that necessitates that somebody be off the bus to operate the lift and get that student off. Next slide. When a student is in a seizure convulsive state, 911 should be called immediately. True or false?
True.
It's actually false. Does anybody know why it's false?
They're usually short and they don't have bad outcomes.
That's right. Immediately is the word that catches that, because like he just talked about, I don't know statistic wise, but I'll say a majority. So majority would be 75% or more of seizures and epileptic conditions are non-medical emergencies, meaning that they're, and we'll get into this a little bit later, talking about the different types of seizures and showing you videos of what those look like. But petit mal would be the seizures like what he's talked about or mentioned, that they're not the convulsive state where somebody is shaking uncontrollably, losing their bowels, or just losing consciousness. You maintain consciousness during petit mal seizures, but it's just like you got that 1,000-yard stare going on. Or you might see somebody just steadily twitching or ticking, and that might be a sign or a signature that a seizure is going on. The number that is the decisive piece in calling 911 or not, for most seizure plans, is 5 minutes. If a seizure lasts 5 minutes, and that's why it's important, as we get into it later with the medical plan, is that you have somebody with you. Well, you don't have somebody with you, you're on your own, but start the timing, because from that point that you first saw it or it happened, 5 minutes happens that or passes, that's when you want to call and get emergency services there. All right, number 10, Roger. Students with multiple disabilities all have similar needs. There's no need for special training. True or false? False. We wouldn't have opportunities like this. We wouldn't need to update ourselves, because things are constantly changing. And I don't know, from 18 years ago till now, I think there's been 3 or 4 different name changes to some of the categories of disabilities. Like when I first started teaching, they called MSD, which stands for moderate severe disabilities, FMD, functional mental disabilities. So just within the last 18 years on the education side of it, they have shifted that terminology from FMD, functional mental disabilities, to MSD, moderate severe disabilities. A lot of times that also coincides with what seems like it changes whenever somebody new gets into office. Not get into politics and all that stuff, but you know, you just got to be aware of the terms and the terminology. Those are contagious, Roger. You're not going to be able to stand up here and do that, you're gonna put us all to sleep, buddy. All right, next slide, please. All right, communication, special needs transportation. That's communication, and this is on multiple levels and in multiple directions, okay? Ideally, this happens, you're not just hearing stuff or getting information about your kids from Mr. Hopkins or the folks at the bus garage. That's one thing that when I came into Central, I have a letter that as a teacher, I'm required to send a letter out to all other teachers in the building that my kids have, and saying, hey, this is Roger. This is his disability. This is the strengths. This is the things that help him. And so as a teacher, I was like, okay, I do this every year for staff inside the building, but our bus drivers and monitors, it's almost like they just kind of get left to the back burner. So what I've done in my years is I've taken that same letter once I get it ready, and it's a letter introducing myself, number, how to contact me, email, and then I tell them about the student, and then I give them a screenshot of the IEP, the accommodations page, any accommodations, supports and modifications, and those are things that we do in the classroom to help that student. Well, it only makes sense that if we do something in the classroom to help that student, it's going to help somebody on the bus, whether it be the driver or the monitor with that student. So that's something that, and I can share that with you, Mr. Hopkins, because that's one thing that I didn't share at KAPT because I didn't get into that level of this, but I will share that with him. It could be something that you just take and replicate. But with that, I try to do the Infinite Campus. Does anybody know what Infinite Campus is? It's a headache, for one, but Infinite Campus is the student information system. So maybe as drivers, when you all radio in saying so-and-so's not home, can you call whoever's at the garage is pulling up Infinite Campus, most likely, and looking up that contact information. So I print off the student summary page, which is the name, address, phone number, and the contacts. And then I also make screenshots like I did for the classroom folks for the drivers and monitors. And that's something that I did for all my MSD students. And the drivers loved it. More or less, they loved it because they felt like they were being included and got some information that they hadn't gotten before. So the different levels and different people, stakeholders that you'll communicate with as a driver are the nurse, depending on if your student has medication that has to go to and from school. Maybe they have a seizure condition to where that medicine has to stay with them. Sometimes students will have a medical alert bracelet. And sometimes, I can't remember the specific name of a vagus nerve stimulator. That's it, VNS. Has anybody ever had any interaction with the vagus nerve stimulator? He's shaking his head yes, and then she's pointing at somebody calling them out. But seizure condition that they usually have a bracelet on, and that bracelet also doubles as a magnet. And if the student has a seizure, sometimes it may specify in their plan administer as soon as the seizure starts or administer after such and such time has elapsed. But all you do as the person responding is get them safe into like a seizure safe position, and then you take that bracelet, and a lot of times it's on their arm, so you can just take their arm and move it to where it needs to, but you just run that magnet over their implant, and it gives them a dose of the seizure medication to control things or medicate things. But again, that 5-minute time frame is crucial. MSD teacher and parent educator, Callaway County, we call them instructional assistants. I get to Madison County and they call them parent educators, but it's the same position. It's the individuals in the classrooms that aren't the certified teacher, but the instructional support staff. Most likely, if Rockcastle County is like Madison County, Madison Central, the teachers are in the classroom receiving everybody, car riders and bus riders, and the paraeducators are the ones out at the buses greeting and pulling kids off buses and getting them together, sorting them by class, and then sending them in. As drivers, we also have parents that we communicate with on the daily, students that we have on and off our bus, and then different school specialist positions. Does anybody know what SLP stands for? Speech language pathologist. What about OT?
Occupational therapist.
Occupational therapist, PT,
Physical therapist.
physical therapist, employment specialist. You may call it something different. Sometimes some districts call them job coaches. We call them employment specialists in Madison County, and they brag and point on Roger. He works with Mr. Jeremy, our employment specialist. You want to tell them about your job and what you do with Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, that is.
Where do you go?
I go.
You throw? You can go get a drink?
I say, I work with,
Well, Mr. Anderson helped you get the job, but Miss Yolanda goes with you weekly.
Miss Kyle.
Mr. Kyle, where's he at?
He went to, at Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
That's my job, because I work there.
He works there. So Roger, and another kudos to Central and the climate and environment that we have there. But he was able to, during our studio or homeroom time, I was able to get him paired with a gen ed student that was in the Family Consumer Science program, which is what I called home ec, foods and all that, but it's now called Family Consumer Science. There was a girl named Cassidy that loved Roger, knew him from middle school, and she had some senior time. I can't remember what specifically it was called, but she had some free time in her schedule, and she came and read through the food handler's permit with Roger and was able to help him study and pass his food handler's permit, which let him then go to Mr. Kyle and work, or with Mr. Anderson and Mr. Kyle at Chick-fil-A. And he's been going out once, as a sophomore, he went out once a week to Chick-fil-A and worked there for an hour. This year, as an 11th grader, we're hoping that he can stay on at Chick-fil-A. He'll have to renew his food handler's permit, just like everybody else does in the public, when it comes due. But then we're hoping that he gets at least 2 days a week at Chick-fil-A. And in his senior year, then it's 3 days a week. And then most MSD students, he likes Chick-fil-A. I don't know, do you really like the work, or do you like walking out and getting on the bus with the free sandwich and the milkshake? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, can you tell them what job do you have at Chick-fil-A? What do you do at Chick-fil-A?
Make food and,
What kind of food and what kind of packaging do you do with that food?
hot chocolate, hot cookies.
Roger's the cookie man at the Richmond Chick-fil-A. So, it's like that's the most important job, Roger. So he helps cook them, and then he helps bag them and prep them to get in the kids' meal or out with the catered meals. VI, anybody know what VI stands for? Roger, that's perfect. You took your glasses off. But VI is visual impairment. Sometimes you'll have students that are blind. Does Rockcastle County have any students that go back and forth to Kentucky School for the Blind or School for the Deaf?
Yeah.
Okay. We got that. Well, VI is vision impairment, and HI is hearing impairment. And you have specialists, usually, like Callaway County, we didn't have one as a specific VI or HI teacher. It was shared among 2 or 3 districts because, again, we were maybe 2,200 kids. But Madison County has their own district vision can't think of the vision impairment specialist and hearing impairment specialists that work with those students that are blind or hearing impaired and deaf. I don't think we have any that go to KSD for Madison County, but I do know we have one that goes to Danville for Kentucky School for the Blind. And so, pretty neat opportunity. But all of these people listed are folks that you may not know of on the school side that have a hand in educating and supporting our kids with special needs. The more involved, the situation, the more people that kid has on their support team. And as a teacher, it gets really crazy around ARC time, which ARC is Admission Release Committee, and that ARC is the annual meeting that we have with students like Roger, where we review their IEP, make changes to it, or keep the same focus and bump the criteria up on his goals that we're focusing on. But I have some that have no outside support, and it's literally just the 3 or 4. Me as a special ed teacher, regular ed teacher, parent, the ARC chair, so maybe 3 or 4 at most. And then other meetings, I had one, we had 10 people sitting around for an ARC for one student, and she had services as the SLP, the employment specialist, VI, and HI because of the vision and hearing impairment that she had. And I forgot about OT. She had some dexterity and fine motor issues that OT was still working with her on. So that was a huge ARC to have to take our little cubby of an office and set 10 people around. We actually moved that one to a classroom. Roger? All right. Some special needs transportation equipment that you might see. We'll start over here in this top right corner. Got a special needs bus. It has a wheelchair lift with it. Does anybody know what this center picture is, middle left? Prosthetics, that's right. Prosthetics can either be, like this one looks like it's support, not necessarily that it's an amputee or an amputation situation, but it's a prosthetic or orthotic device to support. All those look like legs. This one looks like it might be for an arm. Those are shoe inserts. So all of this can be considered special equipment, for helping in special needs transportation. What's this picture over here in the bottom left showing? Someone in a wheelchair.
The straps on the handicap.
Straps, and that's specifically what it's talking about, because we also have another wheelchair up here. But a lot of these, I think it's Q-Strength, and I can't think of the other brand or name, but if you have those in there, it's important to know how to operate them, for one. How many of you all have operated a special needs bus transporting a student in a wheelchair? Okay, so just a few. It's real important to know the ins and outs of those controls. They have a button at the back side here that you push up on to slide in the track, and then you have the hook. Real important, you can see it better on this side. It's not hooked to the wheel, but there's actually a bracket that is off the side of the wheelchair in the frame. And it's real important to hook to the frame always, because you don't want to damage the wheel or the spokes of the wheel. It's not as sturdy as the frame. So those are always best, when not in use, pulled up so it doesn't become a tripping hazard. But then life and reality sometimes dictates otherwise. Pointed out the wheelchair up here. What are these two devices? These may not be items you see on the bus, but are more classroom related.
Just to keep your information on, so a clipboard and kind of like an iPad.
It's a clipboard, but it's actually a slant board clipboard. And for students that may have some orthopedic impairments, that may not be able, maybe they have a shortened arm grasp, or may not have full control of their hand, that's a slant board that can be used in the lap instead of up on a table for a student. And then this is a communication device. Of the 11 students I had in my classroom this year, 5 of them had a communication device. And up till this last year, as a special ed teacher, I don't know how, but I hadn't had any interaction with a student on a communication device. And then I come to Madison Central, and 5 of the 11 have them, and I'm sitting here talking, and then I just hear this computerized voice pop up and say, you know, like a full sentence, like I want to go to the bathroom, and I'm looking around, and the peers are laughing at me because I had no clue. And then it's by the end of the first month, I finally realized or had learned their device, because each one had a different kind of tone or intellect, you know, whether it was a male or a female. But then I had one girl that had an Australian accent, so I knew that was always Michaela, you know, with her device. So it was really funny, but at first it's like, oh my gosh, I've gone crazy. But that's something that if you ever come across on a special needs route or a regular route, use that to your advantage, because don't dismiss it and say, okay, well, that kid can't talk. They can talk. And I had, of the 5, I had 2 kids that were lower functioning, and it was just more or less, yes, no, I need to go to the bathroom. That was the extent of their communication. But I had 3 students that could program that thing better than I could and put words in, search and find pictures if they were connected to Wi-Fi, and they were adding their own communication PECS, picture exchange communication system. They were knocking it out of the park with being able to have a full conversation. But, you know, whether they were nonverbal for a mechanical reason with their voice box, or just, you know, a lot of times kids on the autism spectrum, they tend to be a little less verbal and not want to talk as much. So that can aid them to where they may not feel comfortable saying something with you, but they will definitely use that communication device. Next slide, Roger. All right, now this is where I'm gonna slide over, and you wanna go over there and click through them like we did at the library for the Madison County training. These are different types of seizures that we're gonna go through and talk about, and it's short little videos, or it's a segment where we'll read about it, but it's more or less just a good review of seizures. And again, as he's getting over there and clicking on them, this is, you know, when I talked earlier about how it seems like every few years the terminology changes, it seems like that has been another change or shift, in that when I was going through my initial training, the book, or even in Marshall County, they just talked about grand mal and petit mal seizures. Well, when I was researching for this, I found about 3 or 4 more other words or phrases that I hadn't been made aware of or heard of in my training. So it's just a different, well, we'll get through the videos and they'll do the explanation. All right, Roger, let's go to grand mal, the first one up there. There you go. Good job.
These days,
And we have to
we're all together all the time. Working.
Good job, Roger. All right, so this is a video, types of seizures. Generalized tonic-clonic, showing, you know, he's walking along, then he starts shaking, convulsing. Clonic phase is those convulsions. And you see that the guy walking with him caught him, eased him down to the ground, supporting his head and neck. He lost consciousness, so he's come back to. And he set him up. All right, hit cancel, Roger. You come over here, you got this. All right, Pettit Mall, second one down, Roger. Another video of different types of seizures. This is the absence of the Pettit Mall. You see they're passing ball, and then the gentleman just starts staring off. Then after a little bit, he gets kind of like he clicks back into it and continues the activity. All right, notice he was with him, and now he's just walking in a circle. That repetitive motion, it's like he got stuck. And then he came to, and the seizure stopped. So in those two, the individual didn't lose consciousness like the first video where it showed the kid convulsing and falling down. All right, let's go down to the third link. Roger?
Yeah.
Going down to the third one. Back to the presentation. Focal seizures or psychomotor. If you think focal, think focus, and it's a specific area or spot in the brain. I can click up in the corner to unmute it. See that H right there?
And feels.
Let's go back and restart.
A seizure happens when there's a strong burst of electrical activity in their brain. This makes the neurons misfire, sending faulty messages when they're not supposed. Inside your child's brain, networks of tiny cells called neurons are sending electrical messages to each other all the time. These messages guide everything your child does, thinks, and feels. A seizure happens when there's a strong burst of electrical activity in their brain. This makes the neurons misfire, sending faulty messages when they're not supposed to. One type of seizure is called a focal onset seizure. This kind happens when the burst of electrical activity starts on one side of the brain. If your child is awake and aware of what's happening, it's called a focal seizure without loss of consciousness. But if the abnormal electrical activity spreads to other parts of their brain, your child may lose consciousness. This is called a focal seizure with impaired awareness. Both types of focal onset seizures can last from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. How the seizure affects your child depends on where the electrical activity happens in their brain. For example, if it happens in the occipital lobe in the back of the brain, your child may have trouble seeing clearly. If the seizure happens in the motor cortex, they may not be able to move their arm or leg on one side of their body. If you think your child may be having seizures, see their doctor right away. Your brain can...
Got it, buddy. Let's go on to the next one. Folks, we've been going right at an hour. You're not going to hurt mine or Roger's feelings if you need to get up, go to the bathroom or anything like that. We'll just keep on rolling. So take care of business as you need to. Focal motor Jacksonian. Yeah, you're right there. Good job. This video, it looks like she maybe took a selfie of a video of herself having a Jacksonian seizure, and it's more or less muscle spasms. Doesn't look to be affecting any neurological or brain activity, but it's just a twitching or palsy kind of shape there. All right. That is I mentioned vagus nerve stimulator. That was one that goes over the head. It connects at the back of the base of the brain and behind the ears. Go on down to this last one. Doing great, right? All right, observation for recurring, and then care during. Let's click on that. This is a great resource if you've not heard about it on epilepsy and seizures. They have branches, like it says there, Lexington, Louisville, Owensboro, and Paducah. And when I was in Callaway County, we actually that's the sites that they're having it. I think the guy that came to speak with us was out of their Owensboro office. I'm assuming they have offices in those 4 areas, that may just be the sites for the Kentuckiana Walk. But scroll on down, Roger, and there is a flyer that probably does the best. Scroll on down, buddy. Keep scrolling. There it is. All right. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we reached out to them, and out of their Owensboro office, this guy came down, and odd number years we did epilepsy training. He came down. It's a 90-minute training that he did in person, and it was good for 2 years. And then our district health coordinator, the school nurse, on the even years would do a first aid, CPR, and AED certification and training with our drivers and monitors. And again, that's not a state requirement. That was just a district requirement that Callaway County had in place. But we utilized the Epilepsy Foundation to do the seizure training, and the school nurse did the CPR, first aid, and AED training. But this is a chart. You can go to this website, print it, have it accessible, but essentially it just lines out seizure care or procedures in 3 easy steps. Stay with the person until they are awake and alert after the seizure, time the seizure, remain calm, and check for a medical ID. A lot of times it'll be on a wrist. I've seen some that were necklaces, and it just has their name and then protocol, medications that they have, and then their seizure plan if they have a seizure plan listed. Turn the person onto their side if they're not awake and aware. Call 911 if the seizure lasts longer than 5 minutes. Person does not return to their usual state. Person is injured, pregnant, or sick. Repeated seizures, first-time seizure, difficulty breathing, or a seizure occurs in water. Then do not restrain. Do not put any objects in their mouth. And rescue medicines can be given if prescribed by a healthcare professional. Pop quiz. What's that rescue medicine called that can be given for seizures?
There's a few of them.
There is. There's one that's a nose. I learned just recently that there's now a nose spray. It's no longer just the rectal. Does anybody know the name of it?
Off the top of my head, no.
I always get EpiPen and epilepsy confused, but it's not. EpiPen's the allergy. Diastat is the seizure medicine. And for the longest time, it was just a medicine that was delivered rectally. So you can imagine the issues that could create on a bus route. And when I was at Marshall County, I would regularly sub for Lindy, who drove one of the special needs routes. But then I had the joy of driving those kids, taking them to school, because 3 or 4 of my students rode her bus, and then driving them home. So it made for a long day, but it was a fun day. And Lindy and her monitor were both driving, and like a lot of drivers, it seems, they started driving because they wanted to be on their kids' schedule. Well, Lindy did that, and she loved it and fell in love with it. And I think at the point she retired, she had driven a bus for 45 years for Marshall County Schools. And I learned a lot with her. And one day I was subbing and the monitor was on there and I'm like, I think it was Lou Ann. I met Lou. Anyway, I remember Lindy, but I was like going through the bus, checking things and, you know, securing some straps that were loose on the wheelchair restraints. And I look in the bag and they had all of them just crammed full into one of the wheelchair restraint bags on the side of the bus. And I was like, and this one just looked like it was full of trash. And Lou Ann laughed at me, said, no, that's our, I said, it looks like a mouse has been here and made a nest because it's kind of fluffed up and, you know, looked like it had been chewed on, but it hadn't. But they had a few plastic bags in there. They had a sheet in there. They had a pillow in there. And I mean, it's just jammed full of stuff, but it was all things that they had gotten permission to put on there because of the kids with seizure needs on their bus route. And they regularly had to stop their route, find a safe spot, and, you know, provide care for those kids. And they had a sheet because they would try to get that kid off to themselves into the floor, you know, in one of the open wheelchair spots. They had that sheet so they could drape it over the seat backs. And so a little bit more privacy and separation from them and the other students. And then the fat kid at heart, you know, got into the snack bag that they had and was like, you know, what are you doing with this? And that was stuff they had on for two of their darlings that were diabetic, you know, in case something happened, low blood sugar, they could give them something quick to get that blood sugar up and address those needs. So don't be the Lone Ranger and do it alone, but those are some ideas and things that you can take, and especially if you end up with a kid with those medical needs on, check with Mr. Hopkins or whoever at the bus garage is responsible for that about adding those things or having them accessible on your bus, whether it be in the extra wheelchair restraint bag or up in a overhead box or somewhere on the bus. Any questions so far? I've thrown a lot at you all. Let's go back to the presentation, Roger. We'll move right along. I should be able to. All right, so now this is definitions and descriptions of students physically disabled, orthopedic impaired, communication disorders, hearing impairment, mental disability, emotional behavior disorders, visually impaired, and autism. You want to start at the top and work your way down? Stop yawning. It's going to make us all fall asleep, Roger. All right, so physical disabilities. Physical disability indicates any physical limitations or disabilities that inhibit the physical function of one or more limbs of a certain person. It can be temporary or permanent. The causes of this kind of disease are various. It can also be stupidity, and I'll give myself as an example. As you're walking, pay attention to that difference between the pavement and the sidewalk and the curb, because you can break a foot and roll an ankle and break your foot doing that. I had a non-displaced fracture on the outside outside bone of my foot and ended up in a boot for 6 weeks because of that. And I was like, I guess technically that's an orthopedic impairment. And the doctor was laughing at me because I was, you know, in special ed teacher mode and talking about this with him. And of course, it was really funny when I got back to school. I was at Marshall County at the time. No, I was in Callaway County, and had a kid that had spina bifida. And I don't know if you all know anything about spina bifida, but sweet kids, but they often have, you know, they may have you know, 2 cane poles that they use for supports, or they may have either half leg braces or full leg braces that they use along with those supports. Well, I come in and Jack is my friend with spina bifida, and he looked at me and said, "You're only half my twin," because I only had a boot on one side instead of both sides. So, next, Roger. Oh, let's go back to the slide. Have to go down. Sorry. You're just going right on. All right, let's get to orthopedic impairment. Definition: orthopedic impairment means a severe skeletal, muscular, or neuromuscular impairment. The term includes impairments resulting from congenital anomalies, including but not limited to skeletal deformity or spina bifida. I actually talked about that under the physical disability, but Jack's a good example of that. He was a sweet, sweet kid. Usually result from other causes, cerebral palsy or amputation. This definition is found in State Board of Education rules, and this is from Florida content that I found it. Orthopedic, think bone, anything bone related or skeletal related. All right, let's go to the next one, Robert. Yeah, you're good. Next one on the slide. Communication disorders. Communication disorders. Scroll down, Roger. There you go. We'll back up. You can't? Did it freeze on you? Communication disorder is an impairment in the ability to receive, send, process, or comprehend concepts of verbal, nonverbal, and graphic symbol systems. Communication disorder may be evident in the process of hearing, language, and or speech. May range in severity from mild to profound, may be developmental or acquired, may demonstrate one or any combination of communication disorder. I had a speech disorder growing up. I could not pronounce my L's or my R's worth anything. So my parents thought, okay, well, he just sounds like everybody else in the family. And then I started school, and that was when I got referred for speech services. And it was because of abnormality with my tongue. You have that little thing on the bottom of your tongue that, is, kind of holds your tongue, basically connects to the bottom of your mouth. I can't remember what that anatomy, but what it's specifically called, but that piece on my body was too short. And so they had to go in and do a procedure to nip it and let it, grow and extend itself. But after 5 years of speech therapy and after that procedure, I was kicked out of speech, and they said I knew how to make my L's and my R's. But what's funny is every now and then, and it's mostly when I'm getting after my girls, I can, hear myself kicking back into that L and the R because I'm not taking the time to slow down and make sure I'm pushing my tongue up against my mouth to pronounce and enunciate like I was supposed to. And then I also had the joy of living on both ends of the state and hearing different dialects, and it's like, well, nobody knows how to talk. So, all right, let's go to the next one, Roger. Go back to the presentation and hearing impairment. Despite what my wife Melissa says, I do not have a hearing impairment. Selective hearing does not qualify as a hearing impairment. And when I was looking at this is one that was interesting to me because I didn't know the threshold that qualified. Yeah, that was it, buddy. I just saw you on right there, hearing impairment. All right, let's slide down. Scroll down a little bit more. All right, right there, whoa. All right, over 5% of the world's population, or 430 million people, require rehabilitation to address hearing loss. It's estimated by 2050, over 700 million people, or 1 in every 10, will have disabling hearing loss. Hearing loss refers to hearing loss greater than 35 decibels in the better hearing ear. Nearly 80% of people with disabling hearing loss live in low and middle income countries. And I want to stop there and think about 35 decibels. We did this, and one of the drivers at Madison County had some app on his phone because of the work he did in the school with, he was a school security monitor is what they call him. He wasn't like the SRO and the resource officer, but he was just a security monitor. And he had an app on his phone that synced up with the traffic light in the cafeteria. And it worked on noise levels. Loud the cafeteria got, and I think you all may have them or seen them, but the idea is at a certain, at the acceptable level, it's green. Then if it gets too loud, it gets up more, yellow light and this red light. It's too loud, needs to stop, is the gist of it. Well, Dale pulled this out when I read through this, and we had the conversation that 35 decibels is a whole lot louder. It doesn't take much to get to that point, was the point that he was trying to make. Because the room we were in with the library, we had, of course, I was talking, had a video going, and air conditioning going, so a little bit more background noise than here, but you also have the traffic going, and it was like 60 decibels. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if that was indoors, think about your bus, or if you work in the garage, the shop noise, the noise on your bus. You've got the engine noise. If you all have a rear engine pusher, which I fell in love with driving this year because the engine's in the back, I didn't have the engine up front like you do with conventionals, which made it just flip the noise. I loved it, but the kids back there, what? When we were trying to talk and all that stuff. But just think about how quick, engine noise, stereo if your bus has it, the CB, is it a cold day? Do you have to have the fan and the blower? So those are things that add up and, can cause hearing loss. But just take care of yourself because it's something that apparently is becoming more and more of a growing problem. All right, let's go back to the next one. Mental disability. All right, mental disability is a mental impairment condition that affects the mind, how the mind functions. Mental disabilities include mental health disorders, neurodevelopmental, that was a mouthful, neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD, and then mental illness. All right, may also refer to a developmental disability. And let's go on to the next one. Emotional behavior disorders. I love kids with emotional behavior disorders, those EBD babies. Those are, I call them my mountaintop experiences. 1 minute you're on top of the mountain, 1 minute you're in the valley, and you don't know why you went from one to the other, or from the mountaintop to the valley, or the valley to the mountaintop, because there's so much in the processing that I think is really sensory wise, sensory being, too much noise or maybe too much going on, busyness. But these kids are a lot of fun. They can be challenging. There's no doubt about that, because you can, try to say that the wall's yellow and they're going to say, no, that's green. Or you may say that the sky's blue and they're going to say, no, it's, green. Anything can trigger them or set them off. But it's varying levels of intelligence. Oftentimes a kid that qualifies for services as emotional behavior disorder is highly intelligent. And I have found in my 18 years that if you can find something they're interested in and kind of cage the squirrel around the conversation or a direction that or something they're interested in, if it's NASCAR, or if it's, underwater basket weaving, whatever floats their boat, try to make the connection that way with these EBD kiddos and, you know, have a conversation with them. You know, that would be the best way to keep them engaged as best you can while driving a bus. But, you know, often they get into trouble because they're trying to find something to keep themselves busy. All right, let's go on to the next one. Yeah, next one's the presentation. Visually impaired. VI or visual impairment, again, these refers to the loss of vision that cannot be corrected with glasses or contacts. Many people think that blindness is being able to see, not see at all, but some blind individuals may still have some sight and yet still need alternative methods to function in daily activities. You can be legally blind and still function and drive. I know that sounds crazy, but at one, I can't remember if it was KAPT or Stacked this summer, Monica with KDE got up and shared the story, and it was reinforcing the importance on the office side of directors and the assistants in the office checking physicals and, you know, restrictions and stuff, because especially when you get the physical form and how that works out, because they had a driver that, you know, legally was blind, but the medical person doing the physical didn't check the right box or record it correctly, so they passed the physical as a bus driver when they technically shouldn't have. So oftentimes these kids are a joy. You get to experience the world differently with them if you happen to have an individual that is blind. Let's go on to the next one. All right, autism. Probably second to Down syndrome, one of my favorite disability areas because it is so wide and varied. You know, people can be high functioning, and the young Sheldons of the world, if you all watch that show, they have no filter. They have no filter. They often say what's on their mind. And like I was using Elaine as an example, she had 2 grandchildren, and one was high functioning or high verbal, and one was nonverbal. And she said they're different as night and day, but they know who their people are and know who to go to for that help. All right, let's go to the next one, Roger. Oh, that's me. You looked up at me like, all right, special needs transportation, loading and unloading. You've got the same 21 steps to, you know, load. If you have a special needs bus, you have the additional process of operating with aid assistance or monitor assistance. Do you all have monitors on all your buses in Rockcastle County, just preschool or special needs, or what's the situation there?
Pretty much preschool and special needs, isn't it?
Majority do, but definitely those.
Yeah. Duties on road, you know, you have the safety piece of driving, but then also, you know, say you have a student in a wheelchair, how do you best load them? You know, you wouldn't necessarily pull into a driveway to load a kid in a regular bus, but that might be a consideration you have to make for a kid in a wheelchair, maybe back into the driveway or get permission to do that first, but do that so you're not sitting on the road as long blocking traffic or holding traffic up. And there's some situations where you don't have a choice but to do that. And then student info, again, I'll share that with you, Mr. Hopkins, that sample letter of what I send out to people. And I've just got 3 minutes left, so I'll send this and share it with you as well. The Disabilities 101 for bus drivers. I will share it briefly. I came across this and I saw a SCSC, that's the co-op that you all belong to as a school district, but it's also the co-op that we belong to in Madison County. And this was one of the, like, I got it last year at a training I went to with April Brock. She's one of the special education consultants with SESC. And I was looking at it, it's like, where's this been? And why doesn't KDE pass this out to people or make it part of the content with the special needs chapter? But essentially it goes through and has all of the eligibility categories that a student can qualify for special education services. And then it has the definition of what that is, what behaviors are common, what it means on the bus, and then what the bus personnel do. So starting over here, you have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADD. I joke that I have the adult-induced self-diagnosed version of that. But there's a long list of defining characteristics that fill up a whole page of the DSM that defines ADHD. What you need to know is that criteria for ADHD and ADD are very specific and require that a child manifest in 6 or more specific behaviors. These are not just kids who do not want to behave. They have little control over the impulsive actions or responses that happen. Number of prescriptions written by medical doctors to treat ADHD has increased 500% since 1991. Important to note, CDC also says approximately 50% of children with ADHD also have learning disabilities. So behaviors that are common: inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and emotional instability. What this means on the bus: this means that you as the driver or monitor may tell a child where to sit. The child hears it, forgets it because they see something going by the window, or somebody else says hi to them, or they reach down and give somebody a high five and it goes in and out the ear that they heard it. The child may throw their shoe across the aisle and not be able to tell you why they did that. Why'd you do that? I don't know. I don't know. And it's literally that, do an action and it's on to the next thing, but they don't remember what they just did. With that said, when you address or correct behavior, keep that in mind, because if you have an issue or a situation that happens, maybe say on the AM route, try your best to address it or talk about it then, because if you try to wait and hold off till the PM route, they're going to look at you like you have 3, heads, because they're not going to remember what happened on the AM route, much less what happened 30 minutes that last part of the school day when everybody's getting ready or making everybody go to the restroom, get your bags, get your stuff, and the rush that it is to get ready to go out to school or the car rider line. Child may bounce up and down and seem to be liquid lava in their seat. There's really no control there. And the best you can do is maybe play into that game and say the floor is lava, let's stay in your seat, or something like that. Except that backfired on me one afternoon as a bus driver subbing on a route. The child may have an angry outburst if given a reprimand. My nephew, Jack Everett, I'll use him as an example. He's part of the reason why we moved up here, was a wreck that my brother and them had in February. But the impact, they had to remove part of his skull. And in the wreck, I think there's some slides in here. I'm going to try to get to them and wrap up, because I had a timer set so I didn't go too long. Oh, I don't have it on this one. Next time I'll add that picture in, Mr. Hopkins, and share that with you. But there's a picture of all of us together. And I was going to end on this note of reminding you to find your why. And Jack Everett is part of my why. I'll try to make this short. It says I've got 3 minutes here. I'm going to go by my watch instead of that one that says 10 o'clock. You're good. Anyway, February 23, my brother had a wreck, got rear-ended on I-75. The impact basically crushed the third row of their Highlander. Thankfully, Lakin, my oldest niece, wasn't with them. She was on the bus in front of them. They got ahead of the wreck. Justin got stopped behind the wreck. They got rear-ended. Lakin's spot was crushed. The back seat, the back end of their Highlander was up to the second seat. My youngest niece and nephew, Whitley and Jack Everett, were in the middle. And when the impact threw Justin, my brother, into the steering wheel, he bounced off, and in coming back, broke the seat back, and it fell back and crushed Jack Everett because he had just switched from a rear-facing seat to a front-facing seat. And he, in the process of things, basically had his skull crushed, had to have a palm-sized piece of his forehead removed, and has been treated with traumatic brain injury. And that hit the frontal part, the frontal lobe, and so a lot of what he's dealing with now as part of his traumatic brain injury are these emotional outbursts, to where it's like we're happy-go-lucky. Like we went on a trip, we just got back from a trip to Outer Banks with them, and we were coloring a sheet at a restaurant. It was a great seafood place, and we're munching on our fries and, fish and all that. And then all of a sudden, we're coloring and eating, and all of a sudden, like something had bumped, or he went to go get a drink. I think that's what it was. He went to go get a drink and didn't have water in it. And he turns around and shoves his cup at me and says, "I hate you. You always hate me." It's like, where'd that come from, buddy? And so it's always, I didn't experience that side of it until Jack Everett, this happened with Jack Everett. But it's been a pretty interesting walk. But there's going to be two pictures, one of him with me, or me with him, and then the other one was the first day that Anna, my oldest, got on to her bus, kindergarten, first day of school, kindergarten year, getting onto her bus. And that was the why, always find your why, because as many of us that are in transportation, there's many whys as to why we do what we do, and find your why and focus on that. And Anna getting on that bus the first day of school, kind of keeps everything in perspective on all the regulations that we have to do, all the same things that we hear year in and year out. It's all about the safety of the Annas and the Jack Everetts that you have on your buses. So thank you all. Mr. Hopkins?
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. All right. Really appreciate them coming, speaking, talking with you all. A lot of information, I know, but good stuff. One thing I need to say first, well, I've got everybody here. You're going to get a presentation this morning, the next couple of hours, about Narcan. Okay? Most of you probably at this point, you know what Narcan is. Everybody's familiar with it. I'm sure they'll go through and tell you all about it, benefits, good, bad, what it's used for, everything like that. I think eventually you're going to have the option to choose if you would like to have Narcan on your school bus. I am not requiring it. The state is not requiring it. It is totally up to you if you want to have that on there. Hey, Brian, I've got to talk to you real quick. If you've got 30 seconds,
Yeah, sure.
I've got to tell you something. But again, you are not required to take it, okay? We're just putting it out there. Some of you may want it. You may choose that you want to have it, that you have that on your bus in an emergency situation. But again, I'm not requiring it. School's not requiring it. State's not requiring it. It is totally voluntary. Now, if you do choose to have it and you want to have it on your bus, you have to remove it every day. It cannot be, it's just like any other medication. Okay, it has to be removed every day. Now, there may even be an option where it's on a keychain or something that makes it easy. But again, not required. I don't want to add any extra pressure, any extra stress, any extra duties and responsibilities if we can absolutely avoid it. But I just want to say that out loud to the whole group as a whole once you hear the presentation. Okay? And we can talk about that a little bit more later, but we're kind of running behind. So let me get you into your groups, kind of tell you what we're going to be doing. We're going to have two groups that are going to go outside and drive. Mr. Cornelius is going to take one group. I will take the other group. That'll be about half of you. The other half of you will stay in here Do CPR and first aid along with the Narcan part of the training. So, so that's how we're gonna split up here in just a minute and go that way. So here are your groups. And I'll give you time to go to the bathroom if you need to go to the bathroom and do that before we go drive. Group 1 with Mr. Cornelius will be Jeff Bullock, David Gibbs, Brenda Parsons, Herschel Callahan, Doug Bishop, Danny Ham. Okay, with me will be David Bryant, Donnie Minton, Vicky Mullins, Wilmetta French, Bobby French, Danny Ham, Jeff Miller. So you all will be going outside on the bus with me first. Everybody else will be staying in here.
You got Danny twice. I was gonna say, how's
Did
Danny?
I say Danny twice? I'm sorry. I missed somebody else somewhere else. I'm sorry.
You gonna drive one drive.
Yeah, Danny, go with Chris's group. Go with Chris. That'll even us up. Well, let me go through the others. That may be who I left off because I don't see her on here. I got you in another group. We'll figure it out here in just a second. Group 3 will drive second. Will be with me, Kathy Dees, Bobby Dees, Tracy Nicely, Phil Bourne, Jack Alexander, Anthony Coffey. Group 4 with Mr. Cornelius will be Heather Allen, Ashley McClure, Amy Renner, James Pointer, Ronnie McClure, Roger Reynolds, Daniel Skira. Did I miss anybody other than putting Danny down twice? Okay, so I think I've got everybody. So Danny, you go with Chris's group. That'll keep those two. He'll have 6 and I'll have 6 that way. Okay, I'll leave these up here if you want to come and need to look at them again. But all right, y'all are free to go. Group 1 with Mr. Cornelius. He's got his list, so he knows who he's supposed to have. Group 2 will be with me on a bus.
I ain't driving, no mean thing.
Everybody else will be staying here.
That hurts, but I'm sure it's coming. Oh, yeah.
Then I want plates. Yeah, once again. Going up again. Race that.
And listen, when you leave, other than you don't have to worry about me, and especially like, well, I guess it depends where you're at.
Be at church, but.
Sometimes train we do that.
I sometimes do it every week, but that's what they do. Mine's normally because when I do the extracurriculars, they want to leave a little bit earlier, and it's better if I take somebody that's back.
You know what?
And if they've
They
got
can
something
say that's part of it.
So
That's
fine,
part
and
of
then
it.
I'll get there.